Wow, what a welcome. Thank you, everyone. As a resident of Singapore, may I take this opportunity to say welcome to Singapore to all of you who've flown in, including you, Graça. Thank you so much for flying in for this wonderful convention. I hope that you are feeling, even you are feeling inspired by this wonderful crowd, right?
Thank you so much for this opportunity and privilege to join such a wonderful network of extraordinary people at service of others. And I thank you for inviting me to join you.
Yes, we've really been absorbing the love and service amongst all of you. And this is amazing. I've been told that there are more than 7,000 people in this room.
Wow.
No pressure, Graça. You're going to have to deliver for this
We'll
audience.
try.
So I wanted to begin by putting a question to our audience, which is, who amongst you feels that they know what positive peace really means? Raise your hand if you feel confident. It's great to see some hands raised, because for those of you who didn't raise your hands, by the end of this conversation, I hope you're going to have a very strong ideal of positive peace to walk away with. So I want to begin, Graça, with this beautiful array of memories that your team prepared for this discussion today. Something that jumped out at me was the black and white photo, which is behind. I got very excited about it, perhaps because of my age, but also because there's a story behind it. So when was that taken? What was going on?
I was Minister of Education, the first minister in my country immediately after independence. And one of the lessons I have to learn very early is really to interact with students themselves, with teachers, with parents, community leaders. So this was one of the visits to one of the secondary schools. And the lady I'm talking to is the headmaster, and the other one is one of my assistants at the time. So I was in the learning curve of what education is all about and the challenges we face until today.
So I wanted to ask you then, that was taken in the 1980s. How much have we moved on since then? Have we moved on since then?
Yes, we have. We have to acknowledge that today, no one single country in the world doesn't put in its policy the importance and even the priority of providing education for children, even for the girl child. So that is a huge progress. It's unquestionable. There is also the fact that we developed, conventions, world conferences. Every year there's research being taken place. And so there is work being done, even budgetary speaking. Most countries have been increasing their budget for education. So that has changed. But guess what? We still have millions and millions of children out of school, especially the girl child. So what is not happening enough for us in 21st century with the resources we have, with the capabilities which exist, with technology at our hands? Why is it we still have the millions and millions of children out of school, while we recognize that it's their fundamental right?
Yes.
So that is the dilemma in which we find ourselves now.
You've mentioned this before, that we need to address this as a fundamental human right. The problem is that we haven't done that. But then how do we do it? Something that you've talked about has been the work cannot just be top down. It has to be bottom up. And Rotarians know this more than anyone, right?
Absolutely.
I know that you have examples to share how a bottom-up program works, and then how you can apply that to your own causes.
Yes, it's important to have the top-down, to establish principles and institutions and strategies and policies. Yes, this has been successful. But now we are told by practice that there are pockets of children who are not being reached out. There are spots where we have not found the right methodologies and the right strategies to reach every single child where he or she lives. So, taking the example of involvement, deep involvement of Rotarians into the polio campaign, the success has been you identified countries which were facing much more challenge. In every country, you identified even communities. You identified those who are marginalized for any reason, and you developed the right methodology of reaching them. You succeeded to have every single child in certain countries absolutely covered. That is a wonderful example which has worked with the contribution of Rotary Club members, but which should serve also as an example of what we have to do now to reach particularly the girl child, to map out and identify those hotspots, develop the specific methodologies to address even the so-called cultural, obstacles, and then to be able to reach each family where a child is. And I think that's the challenge we are faced with. So one, I congratulate you because you have achieved this. You have offered the human family with the wonderful example of what has to be done. But the question now is, are we all prepared to take that challenge and set it to ourselves? We have to eradicate illiteracy, particularly for girls. We have to bring them in. And we define a target. We work knowing that in 10 years, 15 years, this has to be achieved. We can do it because you proved it can be done.
Yes, we have. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for everyone joining us here at the convention, there's a lot of actionable stuff here. And we want to shift hearts and minds. It's really important to do that, isn't it? To feel it in your heart, wanting to make this change, to make sure that that change starts with you. So I wanted to ask a really obvious question. We think we know why gender equality is so important, but do we think about it enough? Do we really understand it? Is there a difference between empowering a girl and empowering a woman, for example? And why is it so important to do?
Yes, there is a fundamental question which we have to ask ourselves. When in a family, there is no enough resources to send all children to school, the girl child is the one who is left out. I can bring another example for women. In our workplace, there's no one single country in the world which can claim to be paying equal work and equal pay. No one. What does it mean? It means that we attach different value to a boy and a girl, and a different value to a man and to a woman. Why? This child has the same rights. It's equally bright as a girl. She is eager. There is no reason she would be the one to be chosen not to go to school. And in some communities, in fact, parents go as far as to give her away to be married because they are poor or whatever it is. I have asked a question, I said, if it is a question of poverty, for instance, why parents are not selling the boys and they sell the girls? So it's an issue of how do you value a girl and how you value a boy. And at work, this woman is highly qualified, expert. She is producing the same, sometimes better results at work than a man. But because she is a woman, she receives less. In some communities, almost, in some workplaces, even almost half, simply because she is a woman. So here we have, as human beings, all of us, we really need to shift this. There is no explanation, no legal, no moral, no principle which can justify the discrimination against girls and women. It is these very sophisticated reasons we are finding for ourselves, but when you prove them to say why, you can't explain. I don't think there's anyone here who can explain to me. So we have to have that shift, attach the same value to a girl, to a boy, attach the same value to a woman as we attach to men. And in fact, we have this scourge of gender-based violence. Who is being beaten up? Who is being killed? Are they men? Mostly women. Why you can go to the point of taking life to a woman you say you loved in some time of your life? You take her life simply because you disagree, or simply because you have any anger with you and you charge on her to the point of taking her life. It's because her life for this man doesn't have the value.
Right.
So it's a fundamental question which I think we need to ask ourselves, all of us. But there's also another issue which I think is important here.
Okay.
Is that when we try to find these excuses to treat women the way we do, we don't question, is it natural? It is nature which has defined this? No. I mean, a human being is born the same way and died the same way, whether you are men or women. That's the indication of the sense of equality. All those things are man-made. And because they are man-made, we as human, we have the power to dismantle them. And that is the challenge I live here.
I think it's important to give a second to applaud that. So true. And I can envisage the rewriting of history books, the rewriting of textbooks. I shared a story with you about an economics textbook that I found that dated from the 1930s that said that the value of a woman was less. I mean, it was written down and taught to children. That all has to go, right? Okay, speaking of action, here you have this wonderful, engaged audience ready to act. What is your message to them? You have influencers in this crowd. You have the CEOs of industry, people who represent corporations, and many, many more, the heads of families, both women and men. What do you want them to do about this?
This is one of the most, vast movements I know of. This is a movement which has made so much good, defining clearly what to focus on, to work on, and literally showing that many things can be done when we work together. My message: each one of you should take this as a personal issue. It's not for governments to do it. It's not for institutions. It's for me, where I live, where I work. Just take the time to think quietly and say, how do I treat my girl child? How do I contribute even to the discrimination of girls in institutions? What can I do with the influence I have? You put it right. Many of people sitting here, they own corporations. They are CEOs, they are board members, They are very, very influential people. If you decide in your institution, as from tomorrow, that you are going to work for work, equal pay, you can do it. You have the power to decide that. You can take it, from one pocket and put in the other pocket, and you gain equality. You can do it. It is, let me use a phrase, it is in fact in your hands. It's not in the hands of somebody else. This is one example. The other example I want to bring to us here is, even at the community level, we have community leaders here who are influential in their church, in whatever is the social institution. You are revered in certain cases. What you say and you do by example, it is not only an inspiration, but people will follow, will listen. So we have huge power concentrated in this movement of Rotary. Huge, huge. Please use it. Use it wisely, in a determined way. We have UN meeting and say, we will need 130 years to reach gender equality. It's as if it is impossible first, and as if it is normal to keep women waiting another century, more than a century, before they reach equality. For goodness sake, why? My question is, why women have to wait? So, my message is a sense of personal duty, wherever you are.
Yes.
A sense of institutional responsibility, where you are chairing or you are leading whatever is the institution. But more importantly, is to feel the responsibility of building relationships which are fair, which are just. We talk of social justice. Just start it where you have the power to do it. And multiplying each one of us here. Imagine the amount of good and of transformative action which can come out of that. So I'm sitting here as a grandmother from Africa and say, we can do it. We must do it. And if I can use Nelson Mandela's he said, it can sound impossible until it's done. And we know it is done. It is in your hands.
I want to finish on one last note, because it's where we started. So I asked everyone, do you really know what positive peace means? You have the last word on positive peace before we go. What is positive peace?
Positive peace for me is exactly to relate to the other human being, and you feel you are connected to that human being with the humanity which unites us. And not to allow those fears of, it's unknown. It's unknown until you reach out. So please reach out to anyone. Don't fear the ones you do not know. On the contrary, reach out to them. Don't fear those who look different from you, like me, for instance. I look different. No, I have the same humanity as you. Nature was not wrong to put us in the breastfeeding. Each one of us have taken is white. There's no a woman who gives blood when it gives, It means we are all from the same nature. So I think we need to take really the decision of, if you do not know how certain communities live, try to understand. You understand, you will have mutual, acceptance. You'll work together. And so that is going to be the seeds and the foundations of positive peace. Because once you can reach out without fear, but with empathy and compassion to everyone, then even where there are some differences, we will be able to deal with them before they become a social conflict, which many times ends up becoming a conflict which brings violence. We can plant those seeds in our everyday life.
Yes.
It is possible. When we treat anyone as equal, including, I'll go back to girls and women, we are planting seeds of positive peace.
Graça, thank you. We went slightly over time, but it was worth every minute. Everyone, please, Mrs. Graça Machel.